Hey guys, this is episode 7 of Dancing Thoughts, and I'm just sort of going to carry on from where we kind of left off. Last episode, I kind of might have freaked you guys out a little bit, sharing some of my experiences, but I think it'll be well worth it as time goes on. I did kind of emphasize the fact that just because you have an experience with God doesn't necessarily mean that you understand Him. It's like an entirely different process. So there's some people that have certain experiences which they can associate with God, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they know God or have a relationship with Him. Uh, I'll just kick this off with just talking about a story. There was this blind guy, yeah, and Jesus is walking by, and then he sees him, and the blind guy is shouting out to him that help me, so that you can make me able to see. And so Jesus like puts some mud on his eyes and then tells him that he should go and wash it off in this river. So the guy goes, washes it off, and then comes out, and then the guy can see. And he's walking down the road, and then he sees all this group of like pastors or like Pharisees and Sadducees, and they're talking to him like, what are you doing? Why are you carrying your mat, on a day when it's supposed to be the Sabbath, etc. And then they discovered that he was the blind guy, and so people were arguing. They say, no, you're not blind, etc. You cannot have been born blind. They even called his parents so that they could ask his parents to tell them that, is this guy, was it true that he was born blind? And his parents, said, look, he's come of age. For all we know, he was blind, but let him explain for yourself. And this blind guy just says to them that, look, I don't know exactly what's going on here. I don't know who did this to me, etc. All I know is one thing. Once I was blind, but now I can see. I don't care if it was the devil that sent him. I don't care if it was God that sent him. Whatever it is, as far as I'm concerned, I can now see. Now they're trying to convince him that look, you're still blind, or that you were never blind, or it's not really him, it's a different guy, etc. But he doesn't really care about it. And that's kind of like how I feel some of the time. Like someone comes to ask me and he says, "Does God exist?" Yeah, and then I try to explain to the person why I feel that God exists. But the person is trying to convince me as to why God doesn't exist. But it's gonna be difficult because of the fact that I've had like the experience I expressed, in the last episode. I've gone through it about 10 or so times, and it becomes difficult to have that kind of conversation with a person about whether God exists or not. It's a question of, okay, do you want to know if He exists or not? And I saw this film the other day. It was called "The Invention of Lying," and it's quite an interesting film because the entire presentation of the film effectively was saying that telling the truth all the time would be really stupid, and they created this world where nobody had the ability to lie. Everybody's just telling the truth, and so people are really nasty, saying how they truly feel about people, etc. And there was this one guy, and on a particular occasion he just managed to tell a lie. And he then the film then ends with him creating a whole set of lies because he wants certain people to become good. And so he creates this whole lie about God, and then creates these certain laws, etc., so that other people can obey them. And that was essentially the conceptualization of God, etc. And it brought a lot of things to my mind because I guess in order to localize it, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and the conversation stemmed from love, in that he believes that love originated from sex. And somehow or the other, the conversation sort of shifted and so on, and we got onto the issue of God, because personally, I believe that love is God and God is love. And his belief is that God is a force where you're not necessarily having contact with a direct person. Where so for example, if he prays, he visualizes positive things happening to the people that he loves, so that the universe would essentially take it to them, type thing. And I can completely relate to why one might think that. So I asked him a question. I said, okay, if I told you that I was speaking to some invisible being, etc., how would you respond to that? And he thought about it for a few minutes, and he said, well, I guess, I would know how to respond to it, because at the end of the day, it's never happened to me, so I can't really say anything about it, which is fair enough. And it was strange because a lot of people say that they're interested in God, but how many people really are? A lot of people are waiting for God to just come down and do something, or show them that He exists, etc., so that, okay, then I'll believe. You know, and unfortunately, God doesn't necessarily do things as graphically in everybody's life. And when I look back, I see all kinds of instances where God was trying to draw me closer to Him when I just was not interested. And it took something drastic for me to suddenly, whoa, realize that, okay, I'm dealing with something much bigger than I ever comprehended, sort of thing. And one of these particular occasions, which is where I'll come back to the conversation I was having. One of the things we were talking about, yeah, was like different instances of how God speaks. Like personally, how God speaks to me through other people, and He speaks to me through voices in my head. So I'm sitting down. This might sound a bit crazy, yeah, but it's one of those things that if you want to truly understand it, you have to flow with it in order to get it. If you reject it off the bat, you're not gonna really, if you see what I'm saying. And so, for example, when I was in secondary school, I used to be very violent. I used to fight a lot, and I had a fight with this guy once, and I got expelled from secondary school, and so I had to go to another school. Blah blah blah. And all of these whole incidents happened, these experiences with God, etc. This was like 5 years down the line, and then I went to this party, and the guy that I'd had a fight with was there, and he was there with some friends of his. They're all holding golf clubs, trying to look cool and stuff and all that. And God told me to go and tell him that I was sorry, and it was really strange because I was thinking to myself, why should I go and tell this guy that I'm sorry? This is a guy that I didn't like, I hated. We had a fight. It's been 5 bloody years. I don't give a shit if he remembers or not. What does that have to do with anything? I'm cool with him. It's not like I'm holding anything against him. Why can't we just leave it at that? So I'm having this battle in my head, about whether I should say sorry or not. And for some reason, I see him walking on his own, and so I just say, okay, fine, I'm just gonna go. So I walk up to the guy and he go, look, hey, do you remember me? He looks at me and he goes, no, I don't remember you. And I knew he was saying that, simply because of the fact that he did, but he just didn't want to go there or whatever. So I said to him that, look, I'm sorry for whatever it is I did to you, like in the past, blah blah blah, etc. That you knew me some other time ago in secondary school, and I was really nasty to you, da 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 da. And he let it go. He's like, okay, yeah, that's fine, that's cool. We shook hands and then he left. Then a couple of days later, I went to school, and there was another guy that was friends of his of and friends of mine, and he came up to me and was like, man, you won't believe this, that that guy, like, he saw you there at the party, blah blah blah, and he'd planned that him and his friends were gonna beat you up with the golf clubs, this, that, and the other. But for some reason he said that you went up to him and told him that you were sorry, and that for some reason you just felt that, okay, let's just forget about it all. And it just seemed like a strange sequence of events. And it's weird when stuff like that happens once, twice, but when it happens on a daily basis, in that you're having a conversation with someone, quote unquote, in your head, and then something realistic happens, and then you see it like on TV, and then you see somebody else just walks into the room and says something in relation to exact same thing that you're talking about. Now let me come back to why I said I was having a conversation with my friend. After we had this conversation, yeah, talking about God actually being a person, and then we started talking about prayer and how the Christian conceptualization of prayer is so out of it, because prayer is looked at like God is a genie, and then you pray, God, I want this wish, please grant this for me, and then he does it. Or you pray for positive things, or look after me, blah blah blah. It's not like having an actual friend that you can actually have an actual conversation with. So my presentation of prayer is more or less, just talking. God, how far, how you doing, what are you up to today? It might seem like you're doing something crazy, but when you realize that you're speaking with an actual being, it makes a whole lot of difference. And he went upstairs, and during the conversation we talked about all kinds of things. We talked for about 3 hours, just about God, etc. And one of the lines of the conversation went along the lines of back in the day when I used to do a bit of fraud here and there, 419, blah blah blah. And he just sort of imbibed with the conversation. And he got upstairs, and I was sitting downstairs, and he went upstairs. 5 minutes later, he came rushing downstairs. He was like, "Femi, you won't believe this. That look, that he went upstairs and then he said a prayer, and he said, God, I don't know if you're really gonna hear me or whatever it is, but I thought I'd just give it a try anyway. How you doing? Blah blah blah. It would be really nice if you could actually speak to me, you know." And he said that and then sat down and then switched on the television, and he switched on the TV, and then he clicked on one of the synopsises, and up came this note that said something something 419 blah blah blah. Now what is significant about this, yeah, is that he'd never heard of the term 419 before. Yeah, it was just something that came up in the conversation. Now the chances of it being on British TV is so not gonna happen, if you know what I mean. And it was there, etc. Because this is like a Nigerian code for fraud, etc. It's not something that is that popularly known for it to be on British TV. And it was just one of those weird coincidences, quote unquote. But I'm running out of time. I don't really have a lot to say, but I will keep this line of thought going so that it starts to make sense. But a lot of people say they're interested in knowing God, but not many people put him to the test. I mean, either he exists or he doesn't. Either he talks or he doesn't. Either I'm crazy or this guy actually exists. It's one or the other. If you're interested, if if a guy is interested in finding out something, there's certain things that he does. Yeah, you don't just sit down and then say, "Oh, I'm interested." You know, it follows with a lot of work. It follows with a lot of research. It follows with a lot of action, not just talking about it. So I guess it's one of those things that if you really want to find out if God exists, certain things need to be put to the test. But like I said, I'm running out of time, and we will definitely continue this in the next episode. Or maybe what I'll do is I'll run a couple of concurring ones right now if I can. But yeah, talk soon.